Mr. Berenbroick, and did I?
That's perfect.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, because it sounds just like it looks, so good. You mentioned in your testimony the importance of unlicensed spectrum, in particular the unlicensed underlay. Can you elaborate on this concept and why it would be a potential solution as a reform to spectrum policy?
Sure, and I've been saying that all my life, that it looks like it sounds, so I'm glad to be validated on the record. So the idea of the unlicensed underlay, basically there's consensus that there's a need for more unlicensed spectrum with the Internet of Things coming, with the amount of traffic that's being offloaded onto unlicensed networks. A federal underlay would allow for unlicensed use in bands where federal users reside. The idea would also be to make sure that critical federal functions, for instance, things like national security functions, are protected, to take all interference mitigation steps that are necessary. And also to ask the FCC to figure out how would this work? Is this workable? Is this possible? Which bands are ripe for spectrum sharing? And doing that would potentially open up, I think Chairman Walden mentions at the start of the hearing, 18% of the best spectrum is allocated for federal use. It would allow for unlicensed use of that spectrum, which, as the other panelists have mentioned, a lot of that spectrum sometimes is, I'm not going to say it's unused, but it's used intermittently, and so it would put that spectrum to use more efficiently.
I have a question too. As we're moving towards the 5G and basically the interest from the American leadership on that, the question I have is, won't this require a great deal of the greenfield spectrum? Otherwise, bands that are not being used for 4G, and won't the spectrum need to be a mix of low, middle, and high frequencies? And what has been identified so far, if there has been?
I can take the part of the question regarding the need for low, middle, and high frequencies. I think these gentlemen might have more concrete thoughts on the specific bands that should be allocated. In the FCC's mobile competition report, which came out in the spring or summer of 2014, they identified that for licensed networks to operate, the networks need a mix of low band and high band spectrum. As Mr. Roberson mentioned earlier in his discussion about spectrum propagation characteristics, low band spectrum goes further distances, it goes through walls, whereas high band spectrum can carry more capacity. So for networks that operate in both rural and urban areas, for networks that have intensive uses for mobile broadband coverage, a mix of that spectrum is necessary.